I decided to spend the last week studying not my psychology, but this fine specimen of a man, Willy Wonka. I read both the books that he originated from, and I watched all 3 live-action Willy Wonkas to find out who is the best one. I also wanted to see how accurate they are to the mother Wonka, which is book Wonka, and any changes that was made in the film, and maybe we'll find out who the fuck the unknown is. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was released in 1964 by Roald Dahl, and if you are a little British child born any time after this year, then you 100% have read this book and every other Roald Dahl book that has been released. If you're not familiar with the plot, it's about a little boy named Charlie Bucket who's very poor and he lives with his parents and his grandparents. He hit the nuclear family grandparent jackpot. And all this family gets to eat cabbages because only one of them works, which is the dad, and the grandpa Joe is pretending to be bedridden and doesn't work. And then one day this man who's called Willy Wonka, he owns a big chocolate factory, right? And then he goes, you know what would be a good idea if I invite 5 kids to this factory to like hang out with me? And then he hides these golden tickets in his like Wonka chocolate bars, and 5 kids find them. One of them is like a fat German guy, the other one is a guy that just watched TV, one gal chews gum, another gal is just really spoiled, and then Charlie Bucket finds one. In the book, the kids are allowed to bring 2 family members to the factory, and of course Charlie Bucket only brings Grandpa Joe because his old fuck counts for 2 people apparently. We then get to meet the man himself, Willy Wonka, who, the book Wonka is honestly the nicest Wonka that we've ever seen, other than Timothy's Wonka, who is also very sweet, and I think is like the most accurate representation of the book Wonka. Wonka is also described to have a goatee, which I'm very happy they didn't include in any of the films. You know, book Wonka he genuinely seems to care about people and children, whereas depp Wonka is just socially inept and wilder Wonka just wants to see the world burn. Similarity between Mother Wonka and depp Wonka is the importance of appearance. Mother Wonka insists upon my rooms being beautiful. I can't abide ugliness in factories. In reference to his trees and his bushes, don't you think they look pretty? I told you I hated ugliness. Like depp Wonka, who also has a crazy looking haircut. Okay, it's an absolute abomination. You can tell he cares about how he looks. And like Mother Wonka, who cares about what his factory looks like. Like his whole chocolate room, absolutely stunning, mate. You did great. You didn't have to do that. He didn't have to make a room like that. That was only for himself, and I guess for like when he invited them. But like having a room like that, and like he didn't need to do all that, but he did it, and I'm glad he did. Mother Wonka also pokes fun at the kids, but in a way more subtle way. Like depp Wonka, he gets offended. You know when they keep like saying, "You've already told us about the waterfall," and then he just goes, "Well, you're short." Like as an insult, so it's more like
you're all quite short,
direct. But Mother Wonka is very subtle with it, you know. In the book, Violet is reading out like all these different lists of beans. She's like, jelly beans, coffee bean, and then she goes, has beans, what's that? And Wonka's like, you bitch. Well, he doesn't actually say that, but he's like, you, like mean. And then the bit when there's, you know, the bit where these all seem to be attacks on Violet, but there's a bit where she you know, when her whole death scene, and she gets like taken by the squirrels, and he goes, knocks on her head. Well, in depp Wonka goes, oh, well, she must be a bad nut. You know what book Wonka goes? He says, oh, her bed must have sounded quite hollow. Cheers, mate. Cheers. You're dumb as shit. But both Mother Wonka and depp Wonka seem to have some kind of heart. Like when they're in the boat, that crazy boat scene. They both offer Charlie and Grandpa Joe a spoonful of the chocolate, and they go, and you know what book Wonka says? He says, you look starved to death, which is quite sweet of him to give him like a free little sample of chocolate. Be like, come on Charlie, take a little sippy. You look like you're dying, which, you know, shows he cares. Willy Wonka during that boat ride was out of his mind, trying to scare everybody. I don't know what he was doing. I also want to say that Willy Wonka is my favourite Wonka. Like, I don't know if that was a choice to make him like that, or just Gene Wilder walked up on stage, on like set, and was like, yep, this is how this guy's gonna be. Like, if anything other than the name, like nothing else is in common. Like if it was like being called Willy Wonka and being a chocolatier is the only things in common with like the actual like character. Like he's a completely different guy, and I love it. Like I love how unhinged he is. Like it hasn't come from the book at all. The book is completely different. Like I watched this film before I read the book, and I was like, oh, maybe like some of these traits, maybe he was that crazy. And he's not that crazy in the book. That's just that Wonka. But one iconic moment that is a big inspiration for Chalamet's Wonka is scratch that, reverse it, which is actually strike that, reverse it with Wilder Wonka, and cross that out, reverse it in the book. In The Great Glass Elevator, Wonka goes, cross that out, reverse it. There's a lot of lore to that. Scratch that. Everybody thinks that was a goofy ass line. That line was chosen specifically. The Oompa Loompas in the book were described as: skin was rosy white, his long hair was golden brown, and the top of his head came just above the height of Mr. Wonka's knee. So they came up with this iconic look, and you know it's iconic because it was in the Willy Wonka chocolate experience in Glasgow. But like they like read the description, was like, yeah, fuck that. Let's make this weird orange green haired guy and go with this. Which I don't know like why. I mean, I guess kind of just being, they were just described as being white with golden brown hair, which is just a guy, just a short guy really. So I guess they were making it a little more whimsy, and I'm kind of happy. I'm happy they did that. Mother Wonka is a lot more patient with the kids, unlike Depp Wonka, who doesn't even bother to learn their names. Like when he's first like meeting them, they're like introducing themselves, and he even goes as far as to say, I don't care. Like even Wilder Wonka greeted them at the gates and was like, I read about you in the papers, howdy doody, which is obviously putting up appearances and impressions because he hates kids and he wants them to die, and you know, but at least he's trying. That Wonka didn't even try, maybe because he's scared of kids and of people, but like he was like, bitch, fuck up, what you do, like they're there because you wanted them there, like why are you so against them being here? It's crazy. All three Wonkas enjoy showing off their chocolate factory, but I believe they're all for different reasons.
Because the taste would be terrible, said Mr. Wonka. Just imagine it, Augustus-flavoured chocolate-coated gloop. No one would buy it. They most certainly would, cried Mr. Gloop indignantly.
Mother Wonka is a kind soul. He wants to show off what he's created, and he's happy to pass down his factory to a successor. You know, he wants to share his knowledge, and he wants the Oompa Loompas to be looked after, and he chooses a person for that purely based on vibes. Like the others, he is driven by age, but he seems to like be genuinely happy to share his chocolate making abilities and intelligence with another person. Featured in the book is the never-ending Godstopper, which Wonka made for children that have very little pocket money. I think this is also featured in like all the films as well, which shows that they care about children, about poor children at least, which also ties in with the Chalamet Wonka, who grew up with little money and only had 10 silver sovereigns in his pocket. The backstory, it fits in well with the fact that he cares about the poor. There's also hair toffee he comes up with, which shows that he's against alopecia, but he does say that he made it because then there'll be no excuse anymore for little boys and girls going about with bald heads, which is argued by the fact that kids don't go around with bald heads. But he's been in the factory for years. I don't think he's even seen another human being in all that time, so how's he supposed to know? In the book, the gum is also described as being able to like fill you up and satisfy you, which isn't clear in the film, but like apparently this gum is like eating a meal. So essentially when he starts distributing these without the side effect of turning to blueberry, he's essentially ending world hunger. Like it's just a tiny bit of gum and then you're full, you've eaten. He also like has a little speech about the gum. That Wonka, he has flashcards, he goes through them all, which like seems like he's doing like a sales pitch thing. Book Wonka doesn't have flashcards, he's just speaking, he's passionate about his project, he's just enthusiastic ramblings about what he's made and created, and he's proud of what he's done, and he should be. Also, guess how many times Book Wonka warned Violet about eating the gum? 5 whole times. And you can tell he's getting distressed when she's eating this thing, okay? A little description. Mr. Wonka was wringing his hands and saying, no, it isn't ready for eating, it isn't right, you mustn't do it. Depp Wonka, however, warns her 3 times. You can tell he's getting a little bit scared, but he's also like ducking out of the way, just not wanting to be part of it at all. You know how many times Wilder Wonka warns her? Once. And I'm not counting the second time because he says it with so much sarcasm. He's like, he does not give a shit about these kids, okay? He's like, no, don't do it. Like, you don't care, sir, you don't care. I've also noted down here that Veruca Salt's mother is called Angina. At the end of the book, when they see all the kids, like when they're flying in the elevator, you know what Wonka says? He sees Violet and he goes, it seems they've managed to deduce her after all. I'm so glad, and how healthy she looks. Much better than before. Dude. And about Mike, he's very lucky. Every basketball team in the country will be trying to get him. You know, Mother Wonka is an optimist. He's confident in what he can do. Like, he genuinely didn't think these kids were going to be harmed. I think he knew they were going to be okay. Another insight into this Wonka is in the book Charlie and the Great Grass Elevator. Wonka has made this pill called Wonkavite, which de-ages a person by 20 years. Okay, so he can like pop one of these pills and just keep living forever basically, and keep producing chocolate and running his factory. He didn't even invite any of these kids. He could have just been like, he could have lived forever making chocolate with his Oompa Loompas, but he didn't. And you know why? Which is very sweet. He says, he describes these pills as the most valuable pills in the world, which is why I haven't taken them myself. They are far too valuable to waste on me. Oh my god, the sweetest. Okay, Depp and Wilder Wonka 100% would have taken these pills. Okay, and like, would have never seen another human being in their life. Maybe Depp Wonka might have not taken them by the end of the film, like when he's bonded with Charlie, but he wouldn't have had the chance to bond with Charlie if he's just taken the pills. You know who he does give the pills to? Charlie's grandparents. Okay, it does mess up quite a bit. Like, he ends up de-aging them too much and having to age them back up. But even then, he's like, these are really valuable. But fucking Georgina, you want some? Not for me, but for you.
You lose. Good day, sir.
This man is a narcissistic sociopath who is authentically himself. As someone who is like a chocolate making genius who makes kids' dreams come true, he does not care about these kids and doesn't even pretend to care about these kids, which is kind of respectable. What is really fun about this film is that they just included parts that just didn't exist in the book or like anywhere. They just made it up for the sake of comedy because it is really funny. First of all, the contracts signing, like, okay, hilarious. He knew these kids were gonna get harmed or even die. You know what the first line of this contract is? It says, whereas the management cannot be held responsible for any accidents, incidents, loss of property or life or limb. Okay, no other Wonka did this, so maybe he's kind of smart in thinking of the legal side of it, but I feel like the other Wonkas just didn't think these kids are good, like thought these kids are going to be okay. But at the end of this film, the kids are not okay. But you know who is okay? Wonka. He's okay physically, legally, fucking emotionally. He's great. Which is the number one guy he looks out for is himself. The whole slughorn shtick he made up with about this he just hired the creepiest looking guy and the fucking scar on his cheek and everything, and he like appears to Charlie in like a dark alleyway, like terrifying. He's like, oh, if you give me this gobstopper, I'll give you money, I'll give you sweet coins. And that guy just isn't Slughorn and just a random dude that Wonka hired to make a child prove himself to Wonka so he can be trustworthy. Which, to be fair, is kind of smart, as in, like, both the other Wonkas were just like, oh, this kid's like the last one left and hasn't been hurt, which means he must be given the factory. You know, he wasn't fucking chucked down a garbage chute or made really small or fucking went up a chocolate tube. Like, oh, this is the only kid left. Whereas in this one, he's like, oh, Charlie actually did something nice, like giving the gobstopper back, so he kind of proved himself rather than just, kid, you've got it. This guy is also a narcissist because he puts his name on everything. Like, fair enough that it's called the Wonka bar, like, it's got your name on all the chocolate, which is fair. But you know what else he has? He has the Wonkavator, which is not just called the Great Grass Elevator. He calls it the Wonkavator. He calls it Wonkavision, that television thing, or like where the others just call it television. He has the Wonka Wash, which is that car wash he has, which also isn't included in the book or the other film. This is just the thing they decided to do. And he has the Wonkamobile, which is the thing that goes into the Wonka wash. It's not actually called Wonka wash, he made it backwards. But I can't work out what that is. But he slaps his name on fucking everything. You know when Charlie takes over this factory, he's gonna be like, when he starts to die, he's gonna be like, Charlie, promise me you'll continue to name everything else after me. Like, Bucket is not gonna be on anything that comes out of that factory. Willy Wonka, the amazing chocolatier. Now they make a sad backstory for this guy, you know, having Count Dooku as his dental daddy who doesn't let him eat like sweets or chocolate or candies in his childhood. So to make up for the lack of that, he becomes a chocolate maker himself, and then he learns about the importance of family, which means his relationship between him and Charlie are, you know, just that much sweeter, that much nicer. You know what isn't very sweet is the fact that he gets accused of like the disappearance of Augustus Gloop and I guess all the other kids as well. You know when the Oompa Loompas come out whenever someone dies, he's like whoop, whoop. And then when Augustus Gloop came out, they're like fucking nincompoop, big and vile. I know all the words, I'm pretending like I don't know the whole song. I could recite it now, but we don't have time. And then Mike's like, isn't it weird that the Oompa Loompas have just like come up with a song about this guy, like it's pre-written? And then Mr. Wonka's like, improv baby, and just kind of brushes off the whole you're killing these kids on purpose, which is a little weird, and just saying it's improv is not very persuasive, and I think you have killed these kids. Also, not killed, you see them at the end, but you know what I mean. Also, when he finds out that Charlie's the last one and he's shaking his hand, he's
absolutely
like,
delighted.
I knew
I
it was
you
you.
know, right from the beginning.
Like,
well,
how did you know that? You knew? It's a little fishy. Also, he makes 2 cannibalism jokes in this, which is always nice to hear from someone who has a food company. The little intro he makes with like the plastic dolls and the little song going, Willy Wonka, which is like the funniest part of the film, gets me every time, and the kids' reactions to it are just so funny, and it's all burning and he's like, woo! I think that's very Book Wonka because, you know, he likes making a spectacle, he likes like showing off. What I don't think is very Book Wonka is the fact that it all caught on fire, and I feel like if Book Wonka knew that there was like a hazard of like fire and these kids might get hurt, I don't think he would have shown it. Like, that's just my opinion, knowing Book Wonka so well. I think if he was like, oh, this is gonna hurt the kids, maybe hurt the kids in some way, I don't think he would have shown it. But yeah, no, that's really funny, and I'm happy they included that part, or came up with that part. This Wonka is the only one to kind of have like a character arc. Book Wonka just continues to be the same like nice, passionate guy for the whole thing. Wilder Wonka continues to be like this fucking psycho, untrustworthy maniac who should not be allowed around another human being for as long as he shall live. But you know, Depp Wonka, he reunites with his father, he learns about family, and in the end kind of chooses family over chocolate, which is crazy big moment. Also, little side note, but this version of Charlie Bucket is honestly the sweetest. Like when he wins the ticket, he offers, he was like, we should sell this because we could get so much money for our family, and his like parents and grandparents are like, no, this is a one-time opportunity. But he's honestly so sweet. And when he sees Willy Wonka at the end and he like offers to go with him to reunite with his dad, oh my god, you're so sweet, such a little sweetheart. He's like, I'll be there to support you, and Wonka's like, thanks champ. But yeah, no, Charlie the sweetest in this film.
I'm making chocolate, of course. How do you like it?
I don't know. I've never had any.
You've never had chocolate?
Still, no.
The nicest live action Wonka we've ever seen. Maybe because he's like young and hasn't gone through the whole making a factory and having to deal with spies and having to close down everything because people want to steal all this stuff. But he's very sweet. He's the nicest guy you ever meet. It's Wonka! You know, he's really nice in this one. And apparently this is a backstory to Wilder Wonka, which I think is not accurate at all. Like, maybe if he had killed, like murdered Mrs. Scrubbit and Bleacher at the end, then there's a little bit of a connection there. But if anything, he's more representative of the Book Wonka because, you know, he has the same level of like confidence in what he can do. He's the same like enthusiasm and very optimistic in like what he can achieve. He's got big dreams, and it does waver a bit when his whole shop gets burnt down, but his whole shop got burnt down. Of course he's going to be a bit sad. In the end, he chooses to save Noodle and all the laundry people over like making chocolate. You know, there's like the deal where they're like, you gotta fucking, we can pay you money to save Noodle, but you can never sell chocolate again. If that decision was posed to Willy Wonka, they'll be like, we can give you money for Noodle, or you can never make, and he'll already be like redecorating the shop, and like, fuck them kids, and be like doing his whole little thing. He doesn't care about people, okay? This is pre-storybook Wonka, and Chalamet did a lovely job with that. He's too whimsy and sweet to be Willy Wonka. Unless something crazy happened between Wonka and then the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory film. Something weird must have happened in those middle years to make him turn into that. It's not explained. Do you hear that? What? Get briefly interrupted by the Grandpa Joe Hate Club. Every single version of this, Grandpa Joe immediately jumps out of bed and does a little jig like he hasn't been bedridden for 20 years. He hears about this golden opportunity he can be part of, and he's like, oh, suddenly I am no longer a cripple, and hops up, does a jig, and is like, I can go, Charlie, and fucks off with him. So, as mentioned, 2 people can go. Who should go? Maybe the hard-working dad and the carer mum who looks after you, Grandpa Joe, and looks after the whole family. So maybe the parents should both go. No, Grandpa Joe has to go. What about in the 1971 film? Okay, dad's dead, but mother, hard-working mother, she works in like a laundry thingy or something. Maybe who should go with Charlie? Maybe the hard-working mum? No, Grandpa Joe has to go. In the Depp one, Mum and Dad are both there working. Dad in the toothpaste factory. Mum, I don't know if she's working, but she's Helena Bonham Carter, so of course she should go. Oh, you know who goes? Grandpa Joe. And you know the reason why he goes is the fact that he used to work for Willy Wonka. And so, if anything, that gives him less of a right to go, because he's already experienced the magic of being around Willy Wonka and being around his experiments and around his, you know, his genius mind. But he's like, well, because I know Willy Wonka, I should go. And does he recognise him? No. He's like, well, you the spies are trying to sell out my shit? And Grandpa Joe's like, no. And he's like, well, welcome back. He doesn't remember you, Joe. The worst version of Grandpa Joe is in the 1971 version, where stuff happens that didn't happen in the book, as we do know, but Grandpa Joe's a fucking freak and an annoying little guy in this version. You know why? Okay, first, he makes Charlie steal the fucking drink that makes you float. He steals product from this factory, and then takes a little sip, and he floats up to a fan, crazy fan, which like almost kills him both, and then he just happens to burp, which means they can go back down. So he didn't even know what he was doing. Sorry, I'm getting quite worked up by my hate for this guy, but he like almost kills his grandson because he's like, oh, why don't we try a little bit? Don't do anything stupid, Grandpa Joe. You're in a chocolate factory with a man who's with the craziest man on earth. And then at the end of it, you know, on Wonka has his little mental breakdown.
You lose!
And he's like, you stole some of my shit. and you know his fault, that was Grandpa Joe. And he's like, I had to sterilise the fan, I had to do all this stuff, and look what you've done. And this is Grandpa Joe's fault, like Charlie. Of course Charlie's gonna say yes because he's a kid, and he's like, that's the example who's being shown is Grandpa Joe. He is not a good role model. And then at the end, when they like start to leave, just before Charlie decides to give back the gobstopper, Grandpa Joe's like, oh, maybe we should sell the gobstopper. Like, boy, if Charlie had agreed with you, he would have never won that factory, Grandpa Joe. Also, okay, and I don't know how great Grandpa Joe is, but apparently he's like a saint in this film, because when Charlie's talking to the postman, he's like, say hi to Grandpa Joe for me. What about Georgina, love? What about Josephine? What about Grandpa George? Like, they have no care. And then there's a song that Charlie Bucket's mum sings. And what does she sing? She sings Grandpa Joe. I don't remember the context, but she's saying Grandpa Joe, but he doesn't mention the 3 grandparents. And I don't know when this film is set, but having all 4 of your grandparents alive, even in this age, but like back then, that's crazy. That's crazy lucky. Like there's 3 other grandparents there, and you're honing in on Grandpa George, who is a little rat. Also, Grandpa George in the 2005 version, 100% like the most racist fucking guy. Like, racist, homophobic, misogynistic guy. Like, you know the bit where he's like slagging off one of the kids on the TV, and then Mr. Buck is like to Charlie, oh my god, you know he's saying the most controversial shit ever. Like, that wasn't just for Charlie, that was for the whole every watcher. So this guy is saying the most diabolical things about everybody. Okay, that kid on TV isn't an immigrant, but he will be able to loop back to immigrants and race and everything. You'll find a way. Just to end this little segment that might throw you off a bit, but in Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, as you may be aware of, is there's the Wonkavite. The grandparents get aged up, aged down, aged like whatever, but in the end they all end up being the same age they were. You know what happens? They get a cheeky little call from guess who? Oh, it's the White House. It's Mr. President. And they go, they did something crazy in space. Okay, the plot of this story is like so silly. It's like, you ever been watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? You know what would be better? You think, oh, you know what's missing? If these guys are in space and fighting aliens and everything. But anyway, they get a call from the president and they're like, hello, is this Willy Wonka? And they're like, yes. And they're like, whoa, you've been invited to the White House because you fought a load of aliens and stuff. And you know what happens? All 3 of the grandparents, all like in their fucking 90s, jump up. They're fine. They jump up, they get out of the bed, they're like, we can't go to the White House in our 90s in this bed. So what they do, they jump up and sprint and they run. They don't even like stretch, they fucking sprint out the doors like, we gotta go to the White House. Like, okay, so the main reason why people hate Grandpa Joe is because he jumped out of bed pretending to be bedridden. All 3 of these fuckers are pretending to be bedridden. They're all fine. Imagine how much more money these buckets could have if they weren't... One, okay, the dad's working. Good for the dad. He's the breadwinner of the family, but not really because he's got a really shit job. The mother, she was stay at home because she had to look after the parents, okay? Charlie's at school. Even in the film, he has like a newspaper job or something. The mother would not have to stay at home and look after these grandparents if they could fucking get up and walk. Like, even if they don't want to work because they're like crazy, lazy and old, they could at least like walk around, cook or whatever, do meals, and then that will free up time for mother to go to work, get a job. If they are not as lazy and they could go and get a job because they're fully physically fine, Grandpa Joe survived the whole time around the chocolate factory. Is more than the kids can say. So fucking there's 5 extra people that could be having jobs just because these 4 lazy fuckers can't be asked to get out of bed, and because they want to see the president, which I don't get the hype about because I thought they were like British, and like I don't think we really care about America all that much. Like, it would make more sense if like the Queen goes on or something like that. But yeah, all these 4 grandparents are liars and they all stink, so. Okay, now the moment we've all been waiting for. Who is the unknown? And I think I found an answer. Okay, in Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, as I mentioned, they go to space, right? And guess who they find in space? Aliens. Okay, I'll give you a quick little description of these aliens, okay? It looks more than anything like an enormous egg balanced on its pointed end. It was as tall as a big boy and wider than the fattest man. The greenish brown skin had a shiny, wet-ish appearance, and there was wrinkles in it. About 3/4 of the way up the widest part, there was 2 large round eyes as big as teacups, yellow white, but each had a brilliant red pupil in the centre. Okay, not very unknownish, but we carry on. There was no other features, no nose or mouth or ears, but the entire egg-shaped body was itself moving very, very slightly, pulsing and bulging gently here and there as though the skin were filled with some thick fluid. Again, not very unknownish, but wait! Until at last the creature, which had originally looked like a huge egg, now looked like a long curvy serpent standing up on its tail. These guys are shapeshifters. It went from a weird egg-looking thing to a snake. The complete opposite. You know, the two opposite shapes, eggs and snakes. You're telling me this thing can turn into a snake? What else can it turn into? The unknown? You know what this alien's called? I've forgotten too. Vermicious canids. The unknown is a vermicious canids. We've cracked the code, guys. What isn't explained is the fact that Willy Wonka's dad is like, what is this? It's the unknown. Which maybe he's just, because we know he's a guy of a showmanship. Okay, he wants to perform. Maybe he's pretending to not know what it is, calling it the unknown to give it an air of mystery. He wants to scare kids as well, so this is 100% a Gene Wilder Wonka. The kids saw it and started crying. He thrives off kids crying, of torment. The idea of what it could be is it's not a vermicious canid at all, but it's just another alien. Aliens exist in the Wonkaverse, as we know in this book. There's a fucking alien, vermicious canid. Also, Oompa Loompas. Not really aliens because they're from Earth, I'm guessing, but fucking weird little guys telling me a jump to the unknown. That isn't too crazy. Also, a lot of his ingredients for a chocolate are like the fucking teardrops of a minotaur or something. Like, they're crazy ingredients. That's not like Earth-like stuff. He's probably traveling to different like planets or like weird places on Earth, which is why his chocolate is so darn good. It's because no one else has been to these places and made up these crazy combinations. I'm just saying, whatever the unknown is, it's definitely an alien. My bet is it is a vermicious canid because, you know, we know they exist, we know they shapeshift, and here's your guy. If anybody has any information on who the unknown is or wants to dispute what I said, fucking go for it. I want to find out who this guy is as much as anyone else. Final thoughts. Favorite Wonka is obviously Willy Wonka. Fucking insane dude, crazy, one of a kind, not related to anything that happens in any of the other books. Second one, probably Book Wonka. He's the nicest one. He's the one that everything is like come from. He's the mother Wonka. Next one, probably chalamet Wonka. He's real nice. That Wonka isn't bad. He's just not Wilder Wonka that we see. That film is crazy, scary, and I wish I had watched it sooner. And I'm so happy I made this video that made me watch that film because, oh my god, one of the greats.